All right, welcome back, Watson. We are jumping right into our explainer today, and we're going on a bit of a deductive journey to solve what our source material literally calls an impossible case. You know, maps aren't just, well, lines on paper. They're actually stories just waiting to be decoded. So get ready to channel your inner detective, because we're going to read the subtle clues left behind on the landscape itself to solve a cartographic mystery that spans centuries. Let's get into it. Okay, let's dive into this. Listen to this beautifully cryptic poem from our source files that kicks off our investigation. It goes, Mje Fall, kein Sturz, kein Wasserfall, kein Verbrechen, nur das Unmögliche. Die Königin der Unterwelt erwacht zum Frühling. Now, if you don't speak German, that roughly translates to the Mje Fall, no drop, no waterfall, no crime, only the impossible. The queen of the underworld awakes to spring, escaped as an east wind from the Iron Curtain. I mean, come on, it sounds exactly like the opening lines of a classic mystery novel, right? It perfectly sets the stage for our geographical puzzle. There's no actual rushing waterfall here, no crime has been committed, and yet, there is a fall and an impossible scenario that we need to decode using the clues we have at hand. So to solve this riddle, we really need our primary piece of evidence. Take a look at the intricate details of this early 19th century Bavarian land survey map, what historians actually call an Uraufnahme or Flurkarte. Now, at first glance, this beautifully aged paper might kind of just look like random scribbles to us, but I promise you, every single mark here was placed with a very deliberate legal purpose. We're looking at a highly detailed historical record, and it's hiding some absolutely compelling secrets. What do you see? Now, what's really interesting here is the sheer level of functional detail captured by early 19th century surveyors, right between the years 1808 and 1864. Just look closely at that hand-drawn style with the rich black ink on the aged paper. We can actually spot clusters of coniferous trees, probably pines or firs, sketched meticulously up there in the upper left. And we've got these winding brooks, labeled Bach in cursive German, with those lovely pink shaded banks that show water flow. Notice that really prominent red and pink boundary line cutting vertically across the right side? Plus, there are specific parcel numbers scattered all over alongside labels like Bachwiese. These maps were pioneered by Bavaria for precise taxation and administration, which is exactly why they recorded land ownership and use so rigorously. I mean, they left absolutely nothing to chance. But, you know, a map is really just a piece of paper until we anchor it to the real world. So where exactly are we looking? Well, our sources reveal the crucial geographical context here. This isn't just any random rural Bavarian woodland. We're looking at a specific area near the town of Bernau, situated squarely in the heavily forested Upper Palatinate region. And more importantly, we're looking at a location right on the Bavarian-Czech border. This is a zone historically famous for cross-border trade, incredibly dense forests, and, well, quite frankly, hidden smuggling routes. The rugged geography here is literally everything when it comes to understanding our mystery. Let's zoom in on a massive clue hidden right in that cursive text. See the word Hauptstein? And right below it, Haupt, SXXII. Okay, so in the old Bavarian surveying system, a Hauptstein is a main boundary marker or stone. The Roman numeral 32 designates a specific map sheet or marker sequence. So the really crucial point here is that this prominent red-pink line we saw, it's not just some farmer's property fence. It is the exact historical dividing line, the actual state border between Bavaria and the Austrian Empire, or Bohemia, which of course we know today is Czechia. So when you're looking at this line, you were looking straight at the historical edge of two nations. Now, cast your eyes just slightly to the left of that grand boundary line. You'll see the word Bachwiese written gracefully across that open space. Back in the early 1800s, state surveyors weren't really trying to be poetic, right? They were highly practical. Bach means brook, and Wiese means meadow, so Bachwiese literally translates to brook meadow. These really functional descriptive names were the absolute standard for documenting parcels of land back then. It tells us exactly what this landscape was, just a quiet, grassy meadow shaped by a flowing border stream sitting right next to our marker stone. Let's move out a bit and see how this builds into something much bigger. We have this tiny brook in a Bavarian meadow, but as we know, water doesn't really respect political borders drawn by humans. This brook originates right up in the border hills around Bernau. From there, it flows southeast, crossing right over that historical dividing line straight into Czechia. And once it's across, this humble little stream completely transforms. It becomes the Mže, or Mies River. It then joins the Radbuza near the city of Plzeň, forms the Barunka, and eventually feeds into the famous Vltava or Moldau River right near Prague. So this tiny, unassuming line of ink on our historical map is actually the headwater of a massive, culturally significant Bohemian waterway system. How cool is that?
So we've got the location, we have the border, and we know exactly where the water travels. But to truly solve this impossible case that was mentioned in our opening riddle, we need one final piece of historical nomenclature. So put your detective hat back on for a second. We know the map functionally calls the area a brook meadow or bockwise, but what was the exact proper local name of this specific brook and meadow some 100 years ago? Think about it for a second.
Well, the historical records and local lore actually give it a very specific, resounding name. The entire feature, the stream that crosses the border and the meadow it nourishes, is known historically as the Reichenbach, and the Reichenbach we say. And this tiny, winding brook literally drops down from the elevated Bavarian hills straight into the valleys of Bohemia. Which brings us right to the brilliant punchline of our riddle. Reichenbach Fall, get it? It's this magnificent literary pun crafted by the author of our source material. Remember the poem from earlier? No drop, no waterfall, no crime. See, there is no massive waterfall here in the woods. The fall is just the geographical, topographical drop of the Reichenbach water descending from Germany into Czechia. And of course, for all you literary sleuths out there, the Reichenbach Falls is famously the exact location in Switzerland where Sir Arthur Conan Doyle had Sherlock Holmes and his arch-nemesis Professor Moriarty plunged to their apparent deaths in their final dramatic showdown. So, the impossible case wasn't a crime scene at all, it was just a deeply clever cartographic inside joke. But you know, this story isn't just trapped in history. It beautifully collides with the present day, and this brilliantly illustrates how we can leap from a 19th century surveyor's map straight into the 21st century. This gorgeous photograph was actually taken at the exact location we just spent all this time decoding, the modern-day Reichenbachwies. You can see the lush green meadow, the surrounding dark coniferous trees that just perfectly match those old surveyor's hand-drawn sketches, and the sun beating down on this quiet, historic borderland. But right alongside all that history, you'll probably notice something distinctly modern leaning against the tree in the foreground. Yep, that's a sleek gunshot gravel bike. So, let's kind of close our case file on this location. We've proven that the Reichenbach falls into Czechia exactly at this serene, sunlit spot. We know this area is physically defined by the steep, super challenging climbs of the Grenzkamm, or the border ridge. And as for that bike, well, the source material notes that riding a gun shear here is incredibly fitting. These bikes are known to be designed by experts who are intimately familiar with this specific, rugged border crossing. Riding one here literally means you're navigating a piece of mapped history on a machine built by people who know every single rock, route, and steep incline of this terrain. Which leaves us with one final, highly specific question from our case file to ponder today. Sitting right there at the tranquil source of the Mže, we really have to ask, did George and the engineering team at the cyclocross store custom-tune the gearing on that beautiful bike specifically to conquer those punishing Grenzkamm climbs? It really makes you wonder about the precise modern mechanics required to master the historical landscapes we just decoded, doesn't it? It completely bridges the gap between old world surveying and new world exploration. And honestly, that's exactly the kind of question that keeps the spirit of discovery alive. Thanks for joining me on this explainer to solve the impossible case. Keep looking closely at the world around you, and I'll see you next time.